But the other one is the Florida Gators are making history once again. Okay? They are making history once again, ladies and gentlemen. If you matriculated through the University of Florida, if you are a Gator fan, you should be proud because they have once again achieved something historical. Now, some of the recent history is they gave up more yards and more points than they ever have before, so that's historical. Now, this piece of history is this is the first time a player has sued a head coach in the game of college football, Matt Hayes. We now have Jaden Rashada, who has decided that he's going to throw him a big old lawsuit against the University of Florida, Coach Billy Napier, boosters, on and on and on. The first to do it in the University of Florida is the target.
I just want to know what happened to, and again, this is just a court filing, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is a filing, and I want to stress this to everyone, and I'm sure there's attorneys around there that can jump on the text line and tell us, or brought to you by our good friends at Lifetime Enclosures. The attorneys will jump on and back me on this. You can file anything in a filing. Mm-hmm. Anything. Literally anything.
And it may not make it to court.
And it also may not be true. Right. So you can file anything. Now, Florida hasn't responded. The court process hasn't started. They haven't had depositions. So we got a long way to go here. But the thing that I love is the CODB involved. That Hugh Hathcock, the giant Florida Gator booster, decided that the $150,000 he paid to get Rashada out of the Miami commitment, and the allegation is that Florida enticed Rashada to back off his Miami commitment with the promise of a $13.45 million contract over 4 years. Mm-hmm. And part of that deal was paying back Miami's super booster, I should say, John Ruiz, the $150K that he'd already given Rashada.
He actually paid the other guy.
So Hugh Hathcock, the one booster, paid another booster $150,000 out of cost of doing business to get the kid to leave Miami to secure his deal, to which Florida, I shouldn't say Florida, to which Hugh Hathcock and whatever collective he was working with, the Gator Collective or the Gator Guard, whatever it was, okay?
Right.
Whatever he was working with, finally decided, $13.45 million. We're not going down that road.
Well, listen,
he just threw away $150 like it was nothing, man.
You mess with the bull, you get the horns. All right, you should have just left well enough alone when it came to Miami. That's all.
So Rashada and oh, by the way, Rusty Harden is his attorney, and if Rusty Harden rings a bell, he was Deshaun Watson's attorney.
Well, he should ring a bell.
Let's just say this: if he's involved here, this is serious. It's not like some fly-by-night. He's trying to get money out of them. So he's suing Napier. He's suing Florida's former director of operations. He's not suing Florida, okay? And he's suing Hugh Hathcock.
Yeah.
All for, I guess, the best way to put it is breach of contract.
Can I ask one question here?
Yeah.
As soon as NIL came out, is anybody here surprised that there's going to be a lawsuit?
Money, young kids,
money talks, boosters, and everything else walks.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. But I actually am surprised this is the first one.
NIL
has been around now for 4 years, and this is the first cat that says, you know what, I'm suing you, and I'm suing you, and I'm suing you. And it's because of an NIL deal. It's a booster, it's a coach, and there's no other known lawsuit. Like we said, it may not have legs, it may not get there, but this is one of, he could have been your problem, Leon.
He could have been. You left well enough alone. It would have been our problem.
I want to be very fair to Rashada right now. He left Miami where he had a deal. He says, again, this is just his filing. It's what he's declaring in his filing, okay? Yeah. He said he had a $9.8 million deal with Miami. Ruiz had given him a $150,000 signing bonus. Florida owed him a $500,000 signing bonus on signing day. He never got it, and that's why he eventually backed out. To be fair to that kid, his thought process is, I'm a 5-star quarterback. If I didn't sign with Florida, I could have got a deal with Miami, or I could have got a deal with someone else where I earned money. They took money out of my pocket because by the time I signed,
I get it.
By the time I signed, there was nothing left out there.
It's the quote, it hurt your earnings potential,
it did.
punitive damages, all that kind of stuff. But it's just, for me, it's just a bunch of BS. Back when you could give the bag to a player,
it was so much easier.
It was so.
I wouldn't know anything about that, but
neither would I.
Yeah, when you could give a bag to a player, and let's just say it went wrong, that kid wasn't saying anything.
No.
And now you have the potential of this. And just the classic example is Cecil Newton, the father of Cam Newton, supposedly.
Allegedly, Joe. Allegedly.
Holding up Mississippi State for what was it, Matt?
$180,000.
$180,000.
Allegedly, Joe.
$180,000, and that is only a little bit more than the down payment that Jaden Rashada got. You know,
but again, that's also allegedly. Again, I have to stress this over and over.
That's fine.
You can file anything you want in an initial pleading. Anything. Yeah. Doesn't have to be true.
It's not comical, but it makes me laugh just a little bit. That, as we said, what did you expect? Yeah. But at the same time, once one does it, I can just anticipate a lot more.
I was just thinking this whole Pandora's box is open.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it took this long to have one filing with all the stuff that's going on with 18, 19-year-old guys with their crew and their agents and all that representation. But I mean, I remember the Rashada deal. I remember him backing out the deal. And if he can prove in any way that he lost earnings.
My thing is, if Rusty Hardin's involved, he's got a paper trail. Because there's no way Rusty Hardin would take this case if there wasn't a paper trail.
I do get that part of it, and they did, apparently, at least the way it was told. Remember, we had a big discussion with Andy Staples a couple years ago. Remember this? When it all went down. And we said, he says, I've seen what was written down, but it was never, ever produced. No one ever produced it. The Rashada side didn't produce it. Of course, Florida wasn't going to produce it. And then let's just go back to what you have been talking about. And this is kind of what's the what in all this, and people get a little lost with the NIL. The NCAA is powerless in this particular time as far as figuring out.
And has publicly declared that it's powerless.
And here's the other part. University of Florida had nothing to do with it. Now,
they're not being sued. They are not part of the lawsuit.
Billy Napier, as you just said, may have promised the father $500,000. Is there proof of that? I don't know if there's proof. And all he's doing is
I don't either. All I'm saying is Rusty Hardin's not getting involved in this thing if there's not proof.
I totally agree.
You know, I look back, it kind of reminds me a little bit of when I first got into the NFL, there were agents out there that had their clients, they didn't have any thought for them.
Yeah.
It was all about what the agents were going to do. And there was no licensing or anything like that. It's just a bunch of guys trying to get guys money. And they're going to have to do something with this NIL because it's not going to work the way it's going now, in my opinion.
The way this one's going to end up is that Jaden Rashada has put a big old rash on a gator tail.
Yeah.
That's basically what he's done, is he has put a big old rash on the Gators, and they're going to try and figure out how they're going to get out of this. And by the way, if you do go back in time, this is how the NIL, or not the NIL, but how the collective for the University of Florida just came unraveled because there wasn't the proper leadership. Yeah. And you go back to what Matt's talking about, there were a handful of big boosters that said, we want to get back in the game. We haven't been competitive. We haven't been able to make it to the college football playoff. We got our neighbors to the north lapping us left and right, be it the University of Georgia. FSU's on the climb. We can't get back in. Let's do whatever it possibly takes to get us in a situation. And heck, the Ruizes of the world might have been doing the same thing down in Miami. They just wanted to get back into a competitive situation where they could compete, and they needed to come up with the cash.
Yeah, we had to open up our checkbooks. Yeah. I mean, because Miami, like the Floridas of the world, were falling behind. And we figured the only way that we could compete financially is to open up our wallets, and that's what Luis did. He was Ruiz. Yeah. He was opening up his wallet trying to entice guys to come in, especially.
He needed that $150,000 to help pay back his life wallet stuff because his stuff was just.
Yeah, it's plummeting. It's plummeting. I'm a little concerned about that.
I'm impressed that
I'm just concerned that we might be next in line.
I'm impressed that, number one, that Rashada said, all right, well, he just paid me $150,000. You got to pay him $150,000 back. Yeah. And Hathcock said, well, I can't pay him, but I'll give it to you and you can pay him. So then it was paid back. I love how the money's changing hands in this whole situation.
Yeah. And by the way, let's just go ahead and remind everybody right now, Jaden Rashada has started 3 games in his college career. Okay, you want to know why?
And he's now at Georgia, Florida's biggest rival, which is the best.
And you want to know what I think's hurt him more than anything else as far as his NIL earnings potential? He's only started 3 games in the college.
Well, his own ego is involved in it. The father's ego and everything else is involved in it. That's what happens.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not surprised at this, and I'm like Leon and you.
Yeah.
Why has it just happened now? I would have thought it would happen already.
Yeah, somewhere. And it's so funny because all these guys are leaving, jumping into the portal, and I have no idea whether they were promised X. You can go with Walter Nolan from A&M leaving. You can go to Caleb Downs leaving Tuscaloosa, going to Ohio State. I don't know whether they carry their NIL deal with them. Look at the Cormani McLean thing. They said he's is he a preferred walk-on at the University of Florida? I believe he
allegedly.
is. Yeah, allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
And so I don't know whether his NIL is still intact, but there's just so much gray area. to all of it.
It's like the Wild West. We've said that from day one. They have to do something to kind of reorganize this thing, or else it's just going to continue to be the same.
Yeah, because I just can't help but look at it. I don't know whether he would have been successful at University of Miami. I don't know whether he would have gotten the $9 million from them or not. We really don't know that. But they got to be the happiest of the bunch.
Well, see, here's another thing the NIL will show you as far as what come athletes, because some players handle it well, some players don't. The fact is he's only played 3 games. Obviously letting you know that money may be a distraction. And 18, 19-year-old kids are not equipped to handle money like that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because, listen, money is going to be a deterror. It's either going to make you better than what you are, or worse than what you was.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line between the NIL. As much as I love it, as much as I love the fact that players are getting paid, but some of these players just not mentally equipped to handle that kind of money and that kind of attention, and then that ultimately deters them away from what they should be focusing on, which is ball.